And welcome back, guys. We are here in our FilAm Creative's Voices mega podcast.
Podcast.
Nice. We are here celebrating the Filipino Americans that are being featured at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. You're cracking me up right now.
Get it out.
We have Jeremy Sistoso.
Sistoso. Yes.
Sistoso.
Filipino Sistoso.
It's a Filipino name.
Sistoso. Sistoso. Anyways, I just like saying it, man.
Sistoso.
Sistoso. And he's got a film in LA Asian called Fakeapino?
Yeah.
Fakeapino. Tell us about it. What's Fakeapino about, Jeremy?
Okay. So Fakeapino is basically just me. About maybe a year ago, I started getting curious and like exploring my roots and heritage more. And I was like, well, I know a lot about white stuff, so I guess I'll learn more about Filipino stuff. And so I just went to the library and I just got this book by this guy. Well, he's just recently passed away, actually. It's called Big Little Man by Alex Tizon. He was the same Pulitzer Prize winning journalist who wrote the article, My Family's Slave, if you guys remember when that one came out. Yeah, and he has a book called like Big Little Man in Search of My Asian Self. And it was a lot about him growing up as like an Asian man in the US. And so it was just eye-opening for me in a lot of ways, just thinking about the ways that I was similar to that, and most of the ways that I was not at all. Like that wasn't my experience. And so it got to make me think more about like what I am as like a half white, half Filipino person in America. Yeah. And also like within us, like there's so many, like there's like Darren Chris who like people could think is white. There's like me who everyone thinks is Latino or like something else. And there are some who look like way more Filipino. And so just trying to kind of explore that was like my curiosity. So I just wanted to make a short film in a way that seemed like a digestible story based on some of the experiences I could remember to, I guess, kind of begin the conversation, because I feel like I don't really see it talked about that much.
It's it's almost like an awkward conversation to have with somebody, especially if you're not half, Filipino, half whatever the other half is. And Filipino American, that combination is so common.
Yeah, and it's also really, it was interesting to me too, because like my mind, like some of the thoughts I think about is like, oh, like any issues or problems I might have, it's nothing compared to like what like full Filipinos have to go through or what these people have to go through. And like in certain ways there are so many privileges that I do have, but at the same time it is weird like not fitting in anywhere. Like I look at like, if I'm like with a bunch of Filipinos in like a mirror, like I'll stand out. If a bunch of white people in a mirror, I'll stand out. So it is like a thing, but at the same time, like Filipinos have always felt like my home and like my community, like, and I like the way I was raised too. I don't know if I should get into it, but like, it's like, yeah, there's just like a lot of interesting stuff that I had never really thought about that much until art school was like, you ever thought about this? I was like, no, I guess I haven't.
I mean, so that's cool that they made you explore and think of things that you never even really considered before, right?
Yeah, I mean, and it wasn't even like they're like, do this. It was just kind of like seeing everybody else explore who they were and their identity and kind of coming into their own around me made me think of like, maybe what is that for myself in a way.
Where were you born and raised?
I'm from Fremont, which is just up in the Bay Area, which is like a nice little suburb. And and I was raised like, so I was with my dad and my mom, of course, in the house, but also my grandparents on my mother's side, so my Lola and my Apong. I've lived with them my whole life. So I was like completely raised by them. And then I went to this Filipino church twice a week growing up. So it's like my whole world to me was like, living my Lola, that she's cooking and she's like disciplining me and my grandpa and then like going to church or like that. So it felt like my real life was with that, And then, but then also at the same time, I realized later that I like subconsciously thought of myself as more white and as a more of like a status, like the status quo, even though I identified like personally and socially with Filipinos. Yeah. When in acting training, they were like, you're not going to play white roles. I was like shocked at first. I was like, what? Like, what is my life? And like, yeah.
Well, for the people that don't know, can you explain them? Like what kind of city is Fremont? What's the demographic there mostly?
It's super diverse. It actually has the highest population of Afghans, and there's a lot of Pakis and Indians as well. But it's just like, I had like Asian kids, Black kids, Latino kids all around me growing up all the time. So like race wasn't a big deal at all growing up. And it was only something I really started to think about coming to LA and then going to art school. So yeah, just super accepting place.
Wow. So, I mean, yeah, coming into LA and doing film and you're being an actor and exploring that world, like, I guess it was kind of eye-opening for you that casting-wise, you're being put in a box then, right?
Yeah.
And so what was that realization like, and how do you feel about that?
Man, I'll be super honest too, because like it's been a journey over these past few years. Because when it first happened, when I was first made aware of like, oh, like based on how mixed you are, like I would go to people like, am I white passing to you? Am I white passing to you? And I was hoping that I would be, like that I was white enough, because I was like, my life would be so much easier. And then kind of coming into realizing like that's not going to be the thing. And then coming into like, but I'm glad that's the thing. And I'm disgusted that I wanted to be white passing, you know what I mean? And then like, or like Filipino passing or whatever. And oh man, I guess thinking about it, I don't know what I think about all of it still. Like but I'm not discouraged at all by any of it, because I still really do believe those things of like individually, like we're all so special.
Yeah.
And as long as you just cultivate that and do the work you believe in, then like you'll find where you're supposed to be, like I don't really care if they're not going to cast me in like these small roles as a white guy or whatever.
Did your parents or your family, did they prepare you, I guess, growing up as this, half American, half Filipino kid? Like, were there any kind of discussions that you guys had?
Absolutely not. It's funny to me how much it is part of my life now, because I remember like when I was first getting curious, I went back and I asked both my parents, like if they had ever thought about that. And they're just like, no. Like it really feels like something generationally, or I don't know exactly what it is, but it really seems like they're not aware of the differences in the cultural, social things to the extent that I am.
Yeah. Well, I mean, did your mom immigrate here, or she was born here and she's like...
She's super American, because she came here when she was 5.
Oh, okay.
And like she's the youngest, and she has a lot of older brothers who are like in their teens and stuff like that. It's like, but so she does have some time in the Philippines that she remembers, but it was mostly here. Like she can like completely understand Tagalog when it's being spoken, but she doesn't speak it at all. Yeah.
So she's like the 0.5 generation, and you're the first generation.
Yeah, basically.
I mean, that's got to be that's interesting, because like we don't know, growing up back then, even like during her years, like what it was like to be a young immigrant because Fremont was not that diverse in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah, and they were in SF first too.
Yeah, it was very different. I mean, I grew up in the Bay Area, and when I first immigrated here, I came, I was in Union City, actually.
Oh, nice.
Right
Yeah. Tri-City area, man.
Yeah.
Newark.
And my first experience there too, I remember I was friends with it's like, oh, you're Filipino, there's Filipino, you guys should be friends, whatever. And it was weird because the first time I ran, like the first Filipino American, he was born in America. We're same age and everything like that. But I came to realize later that he was ashamed, or kind of like ashamed to be associated with me, because I was an immigrant. I was a fob. And so, yeah, and so one day he just set me aside and he was just like, hey, out of school we're friends, but in school, like, we're not friends. Yeah.
It's cold, man.
Dang.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, all these cuss words came out in my head, and I'm like, yeah. And I just kind of walked away. But like, and it's a very different time back then than it is now. Like the diversity is now. So, I can't imagine like maybe that's why your mom, I can't just guess.
I mean, honestly, as a parent of a child who's basically Jeremy.
Yeah. Prince Vince and I were
Vince.
soulmates.
Yes. and Vincent is like a true split between me and Andrew. And so I got to see a sneak preview of Fakeapino, and it's amazing, by the way. You guys should definitely check it out this week. And it kind of made me realize, as a parent of a half, a Hoppa Kid, if you will, I never really, it's like I thought about it, but it's like I didn't really put a lot of thought, like, what is his struggle going to be? Because I feel like Prince Vince kind of, he looks more like his American side or the German, ancestry. But then sometimes I feel like he looks super Filipino, but he looks like literally like half. Like he looks like split, like the half of us. So I didn't really know, kind of how to approach that. Like, I don't know if he's going to be really attached to his Filipino side. I mean, of course, I hope for that.
Yeah.
Or, he does have a slight Filipino accent. Watching all that TFC, guys.
Does he really?
Yeah. He says, I love you. I'm poor, mama. I'm poor.
I say that too.
But yeah, so I really can appreciate the film that you made, because it really brings to light a lot of questions of parents who have children in the same boat. I know a lot of half Filipino, half American kids and adults, and there is that kind of like identity crisis of where do I really fit in? Yeah. And so it's fascinating. And I think you captured it in such a way that it's so funny, and so it's,
thanks,
but
Eileen.
like there's those moments of, it really just kind of gets your mind working of how do you deal with that, and seeing the different emotions of what it's like, and like even like the playing it off thing, like as a fresh off the boat immigrant. We were all me and Walter were fobs at one point. Excuse me. We kind of, I feel like we can kind of appreciate that as well, where it's like where do you fit in? And so I feel like your film really speaks volumes more than just the half kids out there. It's a lot of people can identify with that.
Oh, thanks, Eileen.
Yeah.
I was gonna say real quick too. That's something I also realized, like just like kind of watching a lot of videos when I was kind of researching experiences last year, was just how strange being Filipino American already is, and how like especially like because I know a lot of Filipino Americans feel like there hasn't been a visible culture to the extent of like Chinese Americans or Japanese Americans or Korean Americans, and like I was like, man, that's already so much. And then like then I'm like doing all this stuff over here, and like it is really just being anything in this world is so confusing.
I mean, going back with your film, like which film festivals have you entered, and I'm like, or is this the only one? Or?
Yeah, I like legitimately only submitted to LAAPFF.
Yeah.
And I haven't submitted to any more, partially because money, and then also partially because I'm like, I kind of want to kind of go energy into my like comedy web series and stuff that I'm doing. Like, I don't know if I want to keep on giving more life to this short film. Like maybe this will be it, and then I'll just kind of put it out there, and then like I'll like be grateful for the experience it was, and then move on, or maybe if people like it, I might try to submit to more places. I don't know. We'll see. But yeah.
And you're graduating soon.
Yes, graduating next Friday,
Yay!
May 11th at 6 p.m. at Cal Arts up in Valencia. Come through if you want to.
Everyone can make it. Just go.
It's gonna be crazy.
Just random people. It's just calling out your name.
Don't worry, I'll be there for you, Jeremy.
Just,
I'll be there for you.
But it's like a big party, and like Cal Arts lets you wear whatever you want. So I'm gonna wear like a wrestling outfit, and then there's like free food, and they like the salsa band plays, and it's a big good time.
Free food. I'm already there. Well, I just asked because I was like, I'm just wondering, and I guess you'll find out when it plays, like what's the reaction you've gotten, not just from like Filipinos, but from other hoppas, from other like mixed background kids.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's funny. I actually showed it to my roommate and his girlfriend, he's Puerto Rican. His girlfriend is half Puerto Rican, half black. And then she actually like afterwards like was saying like she almost cried watching it because she like related to stuff so much. And I was like, wow,
it's emotional. It is emotional watching it, and I don't know if it's like, I mean, like you're just so fabulous on screen. He's so handsome. Like, and I'm friends with Jeremy, and it's so super fascinating to see you transform into this character, to this person that I don't get to see very often, you know, and I think that like seriousness that you bring to this film, like I was like, man, I was crushed for you, like in some scenes, I was like, that mofo, if he says one more thing, like I felt so like defensive,
Thanks,
you know,
Eileen.
in your honor. So yeah, I mean, it's a great film. It's a great
Thank
film,
you,
guys.
thank you.
Nice. What would you say was like the most difficult thing making this short film?
I mean, not having money, and then also I kind of forced myself to do things quicker than I wanted to because I was trying to make the HBO Visionaries deadline. I ended up not making the deadline because I got confused over Eastern time and Pacific time. But then,
Damn time zones.
I know. I was like, HBO's LA. Why is it Eastern time? But yeah, just that stuff, and yeah, because I would have given the script more time to breathe. And like there are certain parts of the script where I'm like, yeah, I think that does what I want it to do in the way that I wanted it to do. And there are other moments where it's like, why did I have that in there? Or it's like too like so on the nose. I could have thought of like a more cinematic way. And like parts of the film almost feel like an essay more than like the film I would have made. You know, it was just like, here's what so I think I said what I wanted to say. I just I didn't necessarily say it the way I wanted to say it because of the rush. But yeah.
What's the biggest thing that you learned throughout this process of making this film?
Honestly, I think just giving things like time till they're ready. Like, because I've been someone over this past few years, just like trying to like, I'm gonna grow, I'm gonna make things with my friends, and like we're gonna put it out, it'll be great. They'll see my genius, all that whatever. And then every time I put something out, I'm like, wow, that's the best I did this time, huh? Like. So it's like, I think the really, and I know Donald Glover says that too, like he doesn't put anything out before it's so ready. And that is, I think, the thing I learned the most. Like like Arlene was like almost going to be in the movie too at one point because there was like this role, and then I ended up realizing like I can't, like the time stuff, I can't do any SAG paperwork, so I like rewrote it to just be like a guy I knew who wasn't SAG. And I was like, will the scene work? And actually it's like my favorite scene actually of the movie now, but yeah.
Nice. What's your experience with FilAm Creative also?
My experience with FilAm Creative, I think I got involved last summer, and okay. So I was in a class, and then one of the guys in the class named Mark Fajardo, who never comes to these events.
Mark, where you at?
Yeah. He invited me on Facebook to this, I'm burping. This and We Own the Eighth. And so I joined. I was like, oh, this is so cool. So I started going. And then Stacy, actually I was gonna have Aina play my mom.
Aina Dumlao.
Yeah. And then it was gonna be like a mom scene, but then she got a little too busy right before I was filming. So then I had like seen like Stacy. I saw her article she posted. That went kind of viral about being half and everything. And then I saw her comment on something in FilAm Creative. And then I was like, oh, cool. And I was like, oh, I can make it like an ate. And then she'll be my ate. And I was like, would you be down? And she's like, yeah. So then like it came together like that. And then it was, it was super awesome.
See, that's great. I mean, and that is the spirit of FilAm Creative, right? It's just being able to network and putting everyone together and to make content like that, like helping each other out.
Yeah.
We're gonna start wrapping it up, but before we go, do you want to tell the audience like
how can they find you?
When is your show?
Okay, the show is Saturday. This Saturday, and it's at 1:15, and it's part of like the Dislocated Self and Beyond program. Based on the order of things, I think mine is the first one, right at 1:15. I don't know, but it's somewhere in that program. And the theater is Googleable on the Los Angeles Asian website. And I guess finding me, like I'm Stupid Sounding Laugh on Instagram. I just made it private because I was like getting anxiety, but maybe I'll make it public again. And then I think on YouTube I have Stupid Sounding Laugh too, and I think Facebook and yeah.
And do you want to share your series also?
Yeah. No, okay. The next project I'm working on, it's a web series called Fuck Boys, and I'll refer to it as F Boys here on out. And I eventually would like for it to be a sitcom that I like write and star in. But it's basically like me and my friend Ariane, who's like in the beginning and final scenes of Fakeapino. And it's kind of what it kind of is like a silly sitcom inspired by like workaholics and like It's Always Sunny and stuff, but of this kind of to us what we've discovered in college, this new incarnation of like the jock, where it's like these guys who are like pseudo spiritual and like wounded and like they're like trying to be in touch with things, but like but they're also such womanizers, and also they're like, it's like just this weird kind of thing that's so funny to me. And then so it's like that's part of it. But also like me as like, you know, being like half Filipino and him, he's like Indian. It's kind of exploring like what are these kind of subconscious desires to be more like a white man, or like whiteness, or like what we think women want, like the behaviors that we think will get us, the girls, versus like who we actually are. And then like this weird blending of like that right now with like hipster culture and LA culture and like Eastern spirituality and stuff.
Sounds interesting.
It sounds nuts, but like it's actually so simple when you like just watch it. But you'll see it soon. Like we're trying to do the first episode, like an 8-minute webisode within like the next month. Okay, and then to the moon, baby. No.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for coming here.
No, thank you guys so much for. It's been so fun.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck on the film, and hopefully you get into more film festival. Wish you the best. Thank you for coming here. When we come back, we'll be talking with Kathy Gulick. And so here's going to be a word from our sponsors. And come back.
Stay golden, pony boy.
Awkward.
A big thank you to the cast and crew of this episode. Director Rodney Gahudo, producer and host Walter Towns, producer and host Arlene De La Pena, director of photography Winston Fernando, Cam Op and sound Charles Gray, Cam Op BTS Ken Chan.